We're trying to take that technology wherever we can and kind of use it to empower our customers. So we had to sort of look back at our values and really understand what does AI mean for what we're trying to do? And we came to this kind of consensus that whatever we do with AI, we need to do it in a way that empowers our customers.
Welcome to Founder Fridays, where we sit down with builders who've been in the trenches to talk shop, product, design, and the real lessons no one puts on a slide deck. I'm Alex Dam, and I lead our APAC Startup Initiatives at Notion. Today, I am joined by Max Ferguson, founder and CEO of Lumin, the New Zealand company building collaborative PDF editing and e-signature tools used by teams all around the world. Max, stoked to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
It's great to be here, Alex. Thanks for making the time.
My pleasure, my pleasure. With Lumin, how would you explain Lumin to your grandmother?
That's a great question. So at Lumin, our product suites allow people to collaborate in the cloud, primarily on the PDF file format. So if they need to fill out a form digitally or they want to sign a document, they can go to Lumin and kind of use our online services. They don't need to install anything onto their computer and use that to kind of fill out a document or sign a document in an easy, user-friendly way.
That's awesome. Could you take me back to the time that Lumin was actually incepted, and what was the actual problem that you were solving at the time?
Yeah, definitely. So I've always been really interested in how do we kind of transform software platforms and software programs to make them easier to use and kind of more modern. The particular inspiration for Lumen was me working I'd recently graduated from university and then I kind of went into the workforce and I realized that a lot of the tools that were being in the workforce were pretty outdated and pretty tough to use. So at the time, we were using kind of PDF editing tools to mark up plans and draw on, construction plans. Um, to send those to another person we were collaborating with, we would kind of download that file and email it or put it in a shared drive across to them. They would rename it, version 2.3.4 and kind of email it back. And so I was quite interested in the time of how do we make this kind of easier and more simple so that we can get, 3 or 4 people from all around the world on this one document at the same time, kind of all making comments and changes. Um, and we got that going really, really well. So I kind of built up a early prototype of that and got really great initial traction.
And you didn't have necessarily a software engineering background, or you were kind of drawing up plans and you just identified this problem. How What was the start like in terms of building the actual prototype, and then getting it in users' hands?
I didn't have a traditional software engineering background at that point. I just sort of finished a civil engineering degree. But a big part of that degree was computer science and programming. You're building bridges and you're building roads, but often the process is a lot more drawn out. There's, decades of planning that goes into a lot of this infrastructure. So being able to kind of do that in a digital space where you could sort of build a proof of concept in a couple of weeks and then put that out to the market was super exciting. In terms of the people that the Lumen product targeted in the early days, it was really the early adopters. So at that time, the concept of a cloud-based app or a web-based app was pretty new. So it was really these early adopters who were learning about, Google Drive, Google Docs. They were learning about real-time sync. I think, Office 365 was sort of still in its infancy at the time.
Gotcha. And I guess why PDFs? Like, you deliberately chose, kind of the boring but universal file format to, like, was it to win distribution, versus inventing like a new paradigm or a new technology? Like, why did you choose PDF as that one medium?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I had kind of prior to Lumin, I built a number of kind of platforms beforehand. So I built a music player called DriveTunes, and I built a
Hmm.
file converter called Drive Converter, amongst kind of a bunch of other things. I also built an encrypted chat messaging program. So I built a bunch of these kind of products. And what I realized was in the business world and the enterprise world, a lot of the information transfer really did center around PDFs. I don't think, even to this day, I don't think anyone particularly loves PDFs. But the reality is that we capture a lot of information in that format, and a lot of contracts are signed in that format. So I figured if I really wanted to make a massive impact on the way information is kind of shared and transferred between businesses, then kind of centering a product around that file format was a really good place to get started.
When you were putting Lumen in the hands of users and the early adopters at the time, were you thinking of monetization, or were you just thinking iterating, getting their feedback first?
Yeah, so that definitely came in later on. Whenever we're building products at Lumen, we always think about how do we drive value first. And a lot of the products we release are free or very, very cheap, because we believe that if we can put something out in the world that is tremendously valuable, there's going to be a way to monetize that kind of later on. So as long as we can deliver value and we can deliver it at scale, we're not too worried about the monetization side. So for the first 5 years of Lumen's kind of existence, we powered the whole company just on ad revenue. So we displayed kind of small ads in the PDF product to generate revenue. And that worked really well because it meant that we could get going and focus 100% on the product without worrying too much about the sales. So we didn't need to build out like an enterprise sales org or anything like that. We could just kind of build the best product we possibly could. Where we got to in 2019, we probably had a team of about 20 people building the product with this ad supported model. But we realized that we were actually encouraging our customers to click the ads. So we realized we're actually hampering the productivity of our customers. So that's when we kind of moved over to a SaaS business model. So now we can kind of make sure we're investing in features that actually help our business customers get value, while still providing like an amazing free tier for all of our consumers and our small businesses.
And take me back to the time when you launched Lumen. Like in the first few months, you built up quite a lot of users, like millions, or your first million users. What specifically kind of created that early surge in distribution and usage, or an underserved workflow that you had?
When Lumen was founded in 2014, there were pretty much no online PDF editors. Like that was a really untapped market, and Lumen was a very innovative product. So through that and our kind of partnerships with the likes of Google early on, we were able to kind of deliver pretty big volume. But it was just such a rush and an exciting time for cloud apps, which I think we're seeing again with AI right now. We're seeing this, massive kind of untapped potential that's out there. That same kind of potential existed in 2014 for web-based apps.
You guys embedded yourself in this Google ecosystem that you have. Were there a few product decisions that you made along the way that kind of maximized zero friction starts in that ecosystem and really turned usage into a growth channel itself?
Yeah, I think it comes back to that philosophy around integration. So we integrate really tightly with the Google products. We do the same with Salesforce and with HubSpot and various other products. So I think it comes down to that philosophy of um, if you're using and consuming tech, it's really an ecosystem. And as a user, you just want everything to work really nicely and really smoothly. Like you don't want to be entering API keys or clicking through a whole bunch of permissions. You just kind of want to make things work. And so our engineers kind of spend, huge amount of time kind of engineering these pretty complex systems, pretty challenging systems to make sure that the experience for the user is as seamless as it possibly can be. And that's a big part of kind of the success of the Google integration. If you make it, an edit to a document, a Lumin document, PDF document, and that document is stored in Google Drive, we'll just automatically kind of sync those changes back to Google Drive. Similarly, if you're using the Microsoft ecosystem, we'll sync those changes back to that ecosystem.
I wanted to kind of shift gears to, I guess, you as a leader and the founder back then versus you as a CEO now. But were there some aspects of running Lumen that were harder to let go than others?
Yeah, definitely. When I started off, I was a technical founder, so I wrote, a lot of that original code. And I pretty quickly learned that I'm not the best person at writing code. Like I can do it, but there's people out there that are much better than me. So I had to kind of learn to give that up and to bring in other people that could help. And that was probably the first learning for me. As I sort of progressed, further and further through the business, I realized there's lots of other places where I need to bring in kind of help and assistance. And I was able to, build out an incredible team around me that's effectively built Lumen from the ground up.
Talk to me about your leadership style. Like you've described yourself as like listening quietly and then deciding decisively. But do you have almost like a template or a mental model as to having like I guess, a open discussion document and what goes into the final call in a decision and how you communicate the why of that decision if, say, other people disagree? Yeah, how do you go about that as a leader?
Yeah, so that's one that we use Notion a lot for. It's fantastic. I'm a big believer in kind of those open discussion documents you talked about. I think it's really important for the whole team to kind of know our reasoning and thinking. So I use Notion for that. I write kind of, almost like opinion pieces about the market, about the products, and kind of release those out to the entire company to review and learn. And that's really a window that I can give them into my thinking. And we just allow people, anyone at the company, to kind of comment on that, to disagree. We encourage them to disagree, because often they'll know something that other people won't. And we kind of discuss that through Notion, and also through Slack. We then run decision registers as well. So, we can't necessarily have everything super fluffy and just like open. We do have to make decisions, and we've got to make them quickly. So for those, we run a decision register document, where we'll get kind of all of the thoughts in from all of the stakeholders, and then we'll nominate a decision maker, and a final decision will be made. And we sort of we take that as a like a final and a sort of a strong decision. But the nice thing is we've documented all of the why. So often, a year later, the same thing will, a question will come up about like, why did we do this way? And then we've got that decision register document that we can point back to and say, here were all the kind of the pros and cons that we evaluated at the time. And then I suppose the other one is just letting, super talented people do their job. We talked about that a bit earlier, but we bring in, amazing people into the team, and we kind of give them the flexibility and the direction to make their own path.
Like, how have you thought about it now with like embedding AI into your product, into the workflows that you have within your products?
So at Lumen, what we try to do is we're trying to take that technology wherever we can and kind of use it to empower our customers. So we had to sort of look back at our values and really understand what does AI mean for what we're trying to do? And we came to this kind of consensus that whatever we do with AI, we need to do it in a way that empowers our customers. And then what we realized was that, there's a huge potential in this, but there's also some risks in AI. Like, we process, hundreds of thousands of documents signed kind of every month. Um, it's now really easy to like generate a signature with AI, generate a picture of driver's license with AI. So the other half of kind of our AI strategy is around trust, and how do we make sure that the sort of products we're putting out in the market help customers to feel safe and help to, in a way, protect against AI, as well as kind of unlock those productivity gains. So, for example, our redaction flow, which is one that's kind of commonly used by lawyers when they've got to go through and redact a document and remove out any personal information. In the past, that was pretty manual. And with AI, we've kind of shifted that to, just a single prompt, like, can you redact all the sensitive information in this document? And the AI will kind of read through it and find it all and mark it all for your approval to be redacted. We then kind of took it one step further and said, well, we could just, make that a single button click. So now in Lumin, you're a single button click away from kind of redacting all of the information, the private information in a document with AI. So in a way, like, AI has allowed us to deliver even more on our simplicity, and we take these complex workflows and kind of make them even more simple, which has been amazing, and really exciting for us, our team, and all of our customers.
I wanted to talk about your stack. I mean, you touched on you using Notion for your open document for discussion. But is there any kind of one workflow or template that you would recommend founders steal from you tomorrow?
Yeah, definitely. I think the open discussions kind of document is a fantastic format. In a lot of companies, especially larger ones, there's often confusion or disagreement with decisions that are being made, or there's, a lack of transparency. And I think our open discussion documents are a good way to address that. They don't solve all the problems, but they do really help. So that's one. I think the other one, on the more technical side, especially for the product people and the engineers, is the decision registers. They're super important to document, why something would happen, because a decision may seem super clear, right now, when you're making it, the reasoning and the why and the stakeholders. But often you go kind of a year or two in the future and you won't know why that decision is made. And you might end up spending a lot of resources trying to remake that decision, when if you'd recorded it through a decision register document, then it's right there. So there are two. I think the third thing I would add to that is just using Notion as a way to kind of reduce the amount of back and forth you'd get on something like Slack. So I've got a rule: if I ever see a thread on Slack getting to more than like 10 replies, then I'll just copy that whole thread and just throw that into Notion and message everyone in the thread and be like, I see you guys are discussing this heaps. That's great. Look, let's just like put it here in Notion, and then we tidy that up and we actually convert that to sort of a more of a well-structured document. So I think that's kind of a really cool rule that works really well for us, is just shifting those discussions over into a more structured space.
Final round, lightning round of questions, Max. So, first one, if you could start Lumen today, well, what's one thing you would do differently?
Yeah, I think we would avoid that ad model from the start, and we would focus 100% on customer value. How do we drive that value, and talk more to our customers about what they need. For us at Lumen, that's been a 10-year learning journey about adapting the product to our customers. But often, if you just ask, they'll tell you exactly what they need.
And finally, what's one piece of advice that you would give a founder if they're just starting out?
Yeah, I would say ship early and talk to customers. So I hear, and meet so many founders that have kind of been working away on a concept or a prototype for so long, and it looks super promising, but they haven't kind of put it out there in front of customers, or really got feedback on it from people outside of their immediate circle. I think the number one most important thing to do for a founder is just to get that, proof of concept working, or that idea working, and kind of show it to their potential customers. And what we've found is that, by doing that, you often drum up amazing conversations where the customers will tell you, this is not actually what I need, but if you built this, that would be really cool. And that can, allow you to shape the product.
That's sage advice. Just ship early and then talk to customers, get it in the hands of them.
Exactly.
So,
Yep.
Max, thank you very much for your time to hop on this call with me and have a chat about Lumin's backstory, where you're going, and some of the intricacies with how you actually run the team from Christchurch. So again, a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks again, Alex. It's been fantastic.
Likewise, man. Thank you.